welcome back to the Jobs Podcast, LinkedIn Logs, the Jobs Podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how stupid I sounded. I just said the tagline of the show in lieu of saying the name of the show. I seem like an idiot. These people, I'm telling you right now, a little inside baseball, I hear a ringing in my ear. And this is the third time today I've heard a ringing in my ear. First time I was walking the dog. Episode 68. Episode 68 of the Jobs Podcast. It is a balmy 67 degrees outside. I don't know what the word balmy means, apparently, because I was sweating my armpits off out there. Wore a long sleeve shirt. It was 11:44 when I went for this walk. Took the dog out. We got back at 12:20 something. And I was drenched. Underarms just wet. Here we are. What's been going on in terms of job stuff? I thought I would redo my resume this morning. I thought it was going to be a piece of cake. Adobe, I have the Adobe Creative Suite. I subscribe to that. And with the Adobe Spark or Adobe Express, I believe that's what it's called, you can create Adobe Express. You can create different creative templates for things. So they have templates for posters, templates for, I create thumbnails with them. You can do Instagram stories, flyers, logos, what have you. Generate stuff with AI. They also have templates for resumes. They have free and premium things. So I started looking at the resumes. A lot of them have pictures on them, and if you're not a person of color, you can go ahead and use a picture. But I'm telling you right now, the moment it doesn't matter how good you are at a job. I'm telling you right now, if you use your picture and you're a person of color or a woman for your resume, you will not get that job. Prove me wrong. But I feel that is true in a lot of cases, at least in my industry. You might think, oh, people want to hire people of color, women. Not when they don't look the way you think they're gonna look. Just saying. That's just been my experience for a lot of jobs. Anywho's, I got to work on that. I made a quick little using a template. I made a quick little mock-up. The template itself is a mock-up, but I threw some of my information in. I don't love it because I don't want to put too much effort into this for now. And it looks fine. The one I chose looks fine, comparable to the one I have now. But I think the problem is I don't know how much information to include on there. In that, I mean the descriptions. And now that I'm talking it out, this is what this podcast is for. And a lot of other things. Mostly to bitch about the job market. Yes, I said bitch. It's so. Also, I'm gonna do a little tangent off of that. On LinkedIn, people act like cursing is like the thing that like makes you like real cool, and also makes you. I don't want to seem unemployable or blah blah blah, but this is so damn stupid. They're cursing like children. My boss is an ass. What was I talking about? Oh, the resume. But now that I'm talking it out, I'm thinking include like 3 sentences for the description for the job at most on the resume itself, and then invite people to look at the LinkedIn and ChadCWhite.com. You know, a couple of years ago, my mom was always, prior to me having as much experience as I had, not even a couple of years, it's been 10 years. So let's say 5 years ago, she would always be like, maybe you should include C Plus Comedy on the thing. The thing is, I've between every single one of my jobs, and I know this is contrary to my resume to those who have looked at it, but between every single one of my jobs, because I'm lying on my resume, just like everybody else, get over it. There's been huge gaps. 6 months, a year, 2 years. That's what a lot of people on LinkedIn, on these job platforms don't understand. I haven't had a job in 3 months, and it's really getting my mental health. Try 2 years. Try 2 years. I've had in the past 3 weeks, I've had 4,000 interviews and only 200 callbacks and only 100 final rounds. That's been 3 weeks. Like, honey, I wish I had that. I wish somebody would get back to me. We all know I hate LinkedIn. I despise it. And I mean this sincerely. If I did not need it, I would say, fuck it. Oh, I'm so loose today. I gotta tell you, I'm running a little hot. A very mean spirited person is ruining my life. Just kidding. Just kidding. I don't even know what I was getting at there. Okay. Let's get on with the stories. The writing job is fine. That's what's happening. And what else? Anything else? No. Yeah, correct. All right, let's get on. This first one comes from the New York Times. It is written by Talmon Joseph Smith. Jobs report is steady, but impact of federal cutbacks and tariffs looms. Employers added 151,000 jobs in February, the Labor Department said, based on surveys taken as Trump administration policies were still rolling out. The current administration inherited a strong labor market, not very strong, a strong labor market. Job openings rose to 7.7 million in January. We know this. It's a quote from SNL. But the first full month in February was good until yesterday when it came to the stock market, when it went down 900 points. But the rich people control the stock market. The stock market. So that really doesn't matter in the long run. Well, for everybody it does, but that doesn't matter compared to this. They're both two different paths. The gain extended a streak of job growth to 50 months. The unemployment rate ticked up slightly to 4.1% from 4% in January. Now, the report showed a decline of $10,000 in federal employment. This next piece comes from Lydia DePillis and Colby Smith on the New York Times. As layoffs continue, federal workers face sluggish job market. As we know that a lot of federal employees were laid off or offered what is it? They were offered like cancellation. If you're watching the video, you are seeing me scratch my side. Lifted up my shirt, scratching my side. They were offered not resignations, but they were offered buyouts for their packages, things like that. But these mass layoffs have been happening across the federal government. And it's voluntary for some, and it's not for others. Federal workers all across the country are starting to look, and it's impacting people everywhere, said Corey Stahl, an economist at the job search platform Indeed. It's hard to think this isn't going to stress test the labor market in the coming months. Prior to the current administration taking the reins, the federal government's executive branch employed about 2.3 million civilians. So far, we don't have a number on how many of those jobs have currently been cut and how many will get their jobs back after lawsuits over those terminations work through the courts. as well as those people who were laid off and offered, in quotes, their jobs back because they were wrongfully terminated because some moron who used to run a car company and a social media platform and a rocket company said that they needed to be fired. Now back on the jobs article. The survey, that jobs market survey for the first full month, which is February, has likely not registered, quote, more than a sliver of the full impact of federal government layoffs, as we know, that just happened, said Preston Caldwell, chief U.S. economist at Morningstar. And then we'll see that happen essentially in the next jobs report. That'll happen on the first Friday in April. We're playing a waiting game mostly because we have these tariffs that are being imposed and threatened on other countries, Canada, China, the rest. Even without the shakeup in foreign trade and federal employment, private sector hiring has slowed substantially from the blowout pace of 2021 to 2023 that has left the labor market, analysts, and financial commentators gearing up for a potential cooling in economic growth this year. On top of that, our dear leader is hinting at wanting a recession or forcing a recession of some sort. As you recall, the unemployment rate in 2020 hit a high of 14%. Is that true? This is a chart from the Bureau of Labor Statistics by Carl Russell. It was seasonally adjusted. And it hit its lows in 2021. So I still don't know if that's true. I don't know if those numbers are accurate. I mean, it literally is just like a point, like an arrow up and then down. So while it's technically a healthy labor market, it's still not the best report because we don't know the full fiscal picture. In an interview on Friday morning with CNBC, when the jobs report was released, the day the jobs report was released, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent asserted that financial markets and the economy overall had become too reliant on government spending and that there was, quote, going to be a detox period going forward prompted by current administration cutbacks. These cutbacks are going to affect everybody every which way. Look at that in Canada. They're not importing American goods, American-made goods. None of that bourbon barrel whiskey. None of that bourbon barrel bourbon. None of the barrel bourbon barrel. Back on the federal article, Gregory Dacko, chief U.S. economist at the accounting firm EY Parthenon, estimates that in the most extreme case, 1 million jobs could be trimmed overall from the total federal jobs thing. Remember, it was over 2 million prior to this current administration. But now it's looking estimatedly to be 1 million less. That estimate assumes 500,000 government contractors are laid off alongside 250,000 federal workers and another 250,000 in job losses at the state and local government levels. Such a winnowing would exert a cumulative drag on gross domestic product as much as 1% over time. But then there are others, including a senior economist from Wells Fargo, Michael Pugliese, who believe that it could be contained. Those numbers could be a little bit less. Michael says federal layoffs would present, quote, only a small headwind to broader economic growth in the months ahead. Where are these people who are losing their jobs when they apply somewhere? How are they going to find some place that will ultimately take the same skill set. Like, example, for me, I work primarily in the entertainment industry. Bad choice, I know, but it's all I can do. It's all I want to do. But as I know from applying to every type of job ever, nobody's going to take the skills I have. No matter if I change it up, if I say manage creatives or I just say manage a team, no matter what I say, people are going to see where I have come from, and they're going to go, "This isn't." Unless I know somebody at a place, they're going to go, "That's not. We can't do anything with that." And that's not me poo-pooing anything, but that is just the reality. When you have somebody who works in social media, I worked in social media. Like, this is just somebody. Like, I worked in social media for local municipalities. I don't know. I couldn't think of a federal government job. I worked in social media for the Department of Water. That person gets laid off. Okay. They can take their social media skills and apply it to pretty much anything. You can work in social media for a restaurant group. You can work in social media for a local, what is it? School board? Not the school board, but like the entire place. Like, okay, so a school district. That's what I was thinking of. Whew. Thank goodness. I read books. I know words. But you can apply it like that. Whereas somebody who was a federal worker and they I don't know, NASA, they can only apply that to so much. And the same thing for me. I can only apply my production expertise to so much outside of what that is. Finding an open job with the right skill requirements could make things more challenging, as I just said. In the Washington metropolitan area in mid-February, there were 11,600 postings for business operations specialists, but for just 106 tax examiners and 1 agricultural inspector. Not everybody will have trouble finding a new job. In any market, those pushed out of healthcare roles, about 16% of the federal workforce, according to analysis by the Pew Research Center, are likely to find plenty of options. The same is true of people with advanced technology experience, whom the federal government had been focused on hiring in recent years. Again, that's just reiterating things I've said before. The future looks cloudier for those whose roles were highly government specific and whose fields have been decimated by the Trump administration's crackdown on federal agencies. That includes the U.S. Agency for International Development. The United States was the single largest global source of foreign aid, and the cancellation of thousands of contracts has forced mass layoffs among the companies that depend on them, leaving their workers with nowhere to go for work with a similar mission. It's just confounding to me how people work for so long in niche fields. They work, from broader areas to whittle down their skill set. Not whittle down their skill set as if they were good at a lot of things and they were like, I'm going to get good at one thing. But to take their skill set, apply it to such a job that is so insular, and then only to be a couple years later, maybe a decade later, dropped because it'll save money. Doing a lot of air quotes today. Because it'll save money, and now they can't apply their skills essentially anywhere else. You may think, okay, well, maybe they can go to a nonprofit. Maybe they can go help out, charities and things like that, which is also a nonprofit. It's not that simple. You can't just go and get a job, especially when when you've been working in an area that you only had to know so much about. You can't take, I'll put it in a way like this. You can't take somebody who plays American football and then say, okay, go play cricket. Just because they're sports doesn't mean that they're the exact same thing. You can't take a snowboarder and make them play soccer. I was going to say European football, but I don't want to say that. This again agrees with the things that I always say. One of the things I always say is I was going to quote Superstore. Such a great show. But I'm not going to. But this goes with one of the things I always say is that people who have been in the same jobs forever have no idea what the current job market is. People have been in the same jobs for 5, 10, 20 years. If you've been working at a company for that long, you have no idea what's going on out there in the world. It's like getting a divorce when you're 50 and you've been married to somebody for 25 years. You know, you don't know how to date when all people want to do is look at their phones and go on an app. Even for those who work in less niche fields, like financial or environmental enforcement, the Trump administration's deregulatory agenda could deflate new job opportunities, requiring fewer studies under the National Environmental Policy Act or the Toxic Substances Control Act, for example, means less work for the technical consulting firms that conducted them. Scientists who have lost their jobs also face a double whammy. Academic research institutions also depend heavily on federal grants, which the Trump administration has sought to curtail through cuts to the National Science Foundation and the National Institutes of Health. Universities are already pulling back on admitting new doctoral students. The legal market is being flooded. Even as the government employs a lot of lawyers, law firms often prize attorneys with government experience who advise clients on compliance and dealing with federal investigations. My body is throwing me off. But if the new administration dials down on oversight as it has promised, those firms may struggle to keep their existing lawyers busy. And what happens when these lawyers don't have any work? They get laid off. Everything's being thrown topsy-turvy, and with all this uncertainty, I was going to say this all certainty. Look at how fresh it was still in my mind. I can still say those words, on this all certainty. With all this uncertainty, the job market is looking like in a couple of months, I'm going to put my analyst hat on. In a couple of months, it's going to probably be shredded and look seemingly worse than what it is. There's no upside to this. There's no upside to flooding the unemployment numbers with people, with up to 1 million people who can only do what they know how to do. There's even my industry, the entertainment industry, is not even having a good time bouncing back, not even able to bounce back rather, after these strikes. Now you could say that Disney and Warner and the rest of these ilks, what? And the rest of the ilk. You can say all these production companies are scaling back because the streaming profits have been dwindling, with the exception of whatever's going on at Netflix. But they had people went on strike, and then prior to that we were already at a peak of television, and even prior to that, these studios have already figured out, Hey, blockbusters are what people want to see. People want to watch movies at home, and when they go out, they want to see the Star Wars, the Marvels. I can't think of the Mission Impossibles, the Fast and Furiouses. They want to see those. So, what do these studios do? They pull back. They scale back. Well, we don't need. If a show is not performing in the same numbers as Wednesday or Stranger Things or the new Daredevil show, then why make it? And that's what's happening. And so people aren't able to find jobs in my industry. And the same thing's going to happen with these federal workers and with other workers at the same time. If restaurants keep closing, not other restaurants aren't going to be able to hire new servers or new wait staff rather, or new front of house people or new cooks. Sometimes restaurants stay closed. Anyway, that's where we are right now with these job things. Listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website cpluscomedy.com where you can see me talk to famous people. If you want to see a video version of those chats, go to youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can see a video version of this show as well as a video version of the other podcast, The Constitutionals, which is the entertainment business news podcast, as well as Late Night Lately, the late night news show. Late night show. Excuse me. Follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at C Plus Comedy. Follow me on those platforms at Chad Black White. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.